Hey everyone, welcome back to 996 The Howl. Just imagine this off season if the arena vote went yes. This would have been probably one of the best off seasons in sports history. But right now it's just the best off season in franchise history. If they needed to do one thing to get the fans bought back in, stay loyal, get their hopes back up, this off season has done everything 100% grade A everywhere. I think the name of this offseason was stability and moving forward, re signing Andre Tourigny and his whole coaching staff, getting good players, good NHL veteran players that immediately improve the team once they step on the ice without costing them their future or any amount of egregious money. And finally, extending Bill Armstrong for we have him for the next 6 seasons. Craig Morgan reported the last season for Bill Armstrong is the season of 2028, 2029. That's incredible. He had about 1 year left on his current contract, but there was an option to sign him for another year, and then they just extended him anyways. So it doesn't really matter how many years they extended him for. His last season is in 2028, 2029, which is 6 seasons away. So let's see. Does he deserve it? Yes, obviously. I think it took a lot of balls for Bill Armstrong to come in and just clean slate, go to the ownership and say this team is mediocre. If you want to get where we both want to be, we got to tear this thing back down. And for me, I wasn't on board immediately. Once those trades started to come, the Kemper trade was a big domino for me to tell me we are rebuilding again. I think this team, the way it was built when Bill Armstrong came in, now with hindsight, yes, probably mediocre, a playoff bubble team. They'd make the playoffs here and there. Maybe they'd win a round, but most of the time they get knocked out the first round. A perennial mediocre team. They weren't awful. They had some good pieces there because of the value Bill Armstrong got. But Bill Armstrong came in and said, no, this is not a championship team. This is not the culture we want. This is not going to be a perennial cup contender or conference final contender. And in order to do that, we got to move on from here and start making changes quickly. And he did that. It's been 3 years, and this franchise has completely been revamped, rebuilt, and now I think we're going to start moving forward. Not a huge step, but a step forward in the right direction. No longer tanking for a first round pick. We'll get to his notable trades. I mean, these two back-to-back trades, trading away nothing, but receiving, Andrew Ladd and draft picks and Gossespierre and draft picks. The Gossespierre one is unbelievable because Gossespierre played 1.5 seasons for the Coyotes and was one of our best D-men after Jacob Chikrin. For Ladd, it was a good feel-good story. His career was kind of on the ropes. He was pretty much going to retire for the New York Islanders. Comes to the Coyotes, plays one more year. He's on injured reserve for his next year. But in doing that, we get 2 seconds and a third round pick. One of those seconds is J.J. Moser, who looks to be a stable defenseman who's going to be part of our core defenseman. Moving forward, we'll see if he has, he grows into that offensive defenseman or he stays this defensive, reliable, consistent defenseman. The second and third we haven't used yet. In the Gossespierre trade, we also got Artem Duda, who I think is our 11th best draft pick we have in the pipeline so far. We also got a 7th round pick. Then the big one, the OEL and Garland trade. Trading your captain for number 9 pick Dylan Guenther, along with 1 year of Jay Beagle, Louis Eriksson, and Roussel, along with another 2nd round pick and a 7th round pick. All those 3 anchors of Beagle, Eriksson, Roussel are all gone. That was a fever dream. That pretty much didn't happen, and we're already moved on and past that with a shiny toy in Dylan Guenther. The Kemper and Dvorak trade are a bit complicated because the first round picks we acquired from both those trades weren't exactly used in a one-to-one fashion. The first round pick we got from Kemper, we packaged it off to Edmonton, and then we drafted Lamoureux. The first round pick we got from Dvorak, we packaged it off to San Jose and moved up to get Connor Geekie. We also had a second round pick in that Dvorak trade, which we haven't used. And then we got Timmins from the Kemper trade as well. A good, young, promising defenseman who had injury trouble and still had injury trouble in his tenure with the Coyotes and ultimately was traded to the Maple Leafs. And we still have a third round pick from that Kemper trade. And then the last real big sell trade, it just happened a couple months ago. Jacob Chychrun to the Ottawa Senators for Daniel Boot, and along with 2 second-round picks, which we still haven't used. And then he hasn't really bought a lot in trades. The 2 buying trades, 3 if you count Nathan Smith, but I didn't count that as a notable one. A second-round pick for McBain from Minnesota, and a second-round pick for Sean Durzi to LA. We still have yet to see Sean Durzi wear the Kachina jersey because that trade happened late June. It was. Some mistakes, slim pickings to find mistakes for Bill Armstrong in his past 3 years. I think that's because the stakes were so low and it's hard to make mistakes. Well, not hard. I think it's great that he hasn't made many mistakes and he's always been transparent with the moves he's going to make. He's been transparent with us, the fans, and ownership from day one. He's going to tear it down, accumulate draft picks, build from the draft, and start to be competitive in 3 or 4 years. So not too many mistakes. The way he gives out contract extensions have been really good as well. Lawson Krause contract, Michelli, Ingram, McBain, pretty cheap, and Barrett Hayden. All very relatively cheap deals for not too long. And, 2 or 3 years each of those. Krause's was about 5 years. So none of them really broke the bank and hindered our future, which is what I look towards for extensions and free agency signings. So the Mayo extension, that's a mistake because immediately they traded him to Las Vegas for Shea Weber's contract. They were happy with Mayo. This was Andre Tourigny's first year, the 21-22 season, where we had Mayo, Deneen, and Kolyachonok playing way too many NHL minutes. And Mayo stood out well. He played well, good defensively, if you can say that. It was a pretty miserable year all around. But then the next season after that, couldn't really break the team. And we were paying him $700, league minimum to play in Tucson. I'm sure the ownership didn't like that. So that's a mistake right there. You sign a guy for 3 years, league minimum. Obviously, it's a small mistake because you could trade it away very easily. But a mistake nonetheless. Sign him for 3 years, and within the first year you trade him. That's a bona fide mistake. The Timmins trade, I didn't like it when it happened. I still don't like it, but it hasn't really bit us in the behind. We trade Timmins for an AHLer, third line center, if B. He's about 6'4". Curtis Douglas is his name. I thought, holding on to Timmins while we all knew we were going to trade Chychrun and Gostisbehere in a couple more months, we should have held on to Timmins. It's not like our defensive core was amazing. I mean, Timmins could have made that defensive lineup very easily. But, there's context we probably don't have. Timmins probably want to play more. Maybe you want to be on a more competitive team. The injury history with the Coyotes. Maybe he didn't want to go to Tucson and get some reps there. So he goes to the Leafs, barely cracks their defensive lineup, and barely plays in the playoffs for the Maple Leafs. And then this one's not a mistake yet. I just need to pick something to be sort of unbiased. Is the double picking of Simishev and Daniel Boot in the first round. Will that come back and bite us in the behind? Not so much Simishev, but just the fact that there is a lot of really good players left on the board ahead of Daniel Boot. Maybe if it was Simishev and someone else, it would have been easier to swallow. But just for now, we'll see. I could see this probably being a mistake we see a few years down the road, or it's not, and that's why the question mark is there. We don't know if this was a mistake. A lot of outsiders think it was a mistake to pick both of them. For me, it's just questionable. We'll see moving forward. I think it's also the context that these are our last really notable draft picks we're going to have for the next, 5-10 years? We still have first round picks in these 3 years, but we'll see how high they are. I mean, considering the moves they made in the offseason, they might be between 10 and 14 this upcoming season. And then moving forward, it shouldn't be less than 12 ever, really, if you want to get better and the plan is executed. The draft picks, like Bill Armstrong said, accumulate draft picks, build from the draft, and that's exactly what happened. In the year 2020, the 2020 draft, Bill Armstrong couldn't participate because he just got hired, so I'll count that as a draft before Bill Armstrong. And then after that, just doubled the amount of draft picks. 9 in the next year, 10 and 12 in the past 2 years, respectively. And then even though we got better through free agency, through extending our young core of players, through making some trades like McBain and Dursey, we still have all these draft picks at our disposal. It just makes our arsenal so much better. And making these moves right now to get better, some other fans from other teams might say you're getting too good too quickly, while we still have all these draft picks remaining. So we could afford to be good, not waste a lot of money, not handcuff our cap space, so get good immediately, and we still have all these draft picks from selling off the past 3 years. That's why I love this rebuild, and I think it might be one of the best rebuilds ever in NHL history, with no luck involved in the lottery. And 2024, 2025, we have about 3 or 4 second round picks in each of those years. So a lot of good draft picks to pick from still moving forward. I know everyone that's a non-Coyotes fan hates when people talk about Coyotes and the amount of draft picks they have. And then Bill Armstrong came in, teared down the whole scouting department, rebuilt the scouting department. So not only did Bill Armstrong come in and just rebuild on ice, he rebuilt in the office, get better people, get NHL professionals in scouting and drafting, and just make this team better and hit on those draft picks. You have a lot of draft picks. I'm sure all the scouts have loved that. And yeah, they get Dylan Guenther, Josh Doan, JJ Moser, Cooley, Geeky, Lamoureux, Simashev, Boot, Hurabal, just to name a very, very few. And obviously, Cooley is the biggest name on this board, and the fact that they got Cooley to come on board for this upcoming season, just again, the best offseason in franchise history. Can't say enough good things about Bill Armstrong. I haven't really seen anything wrong with him. His plan, he came in, was transparent. He's executed it. He's going to continue to execute it, and I really believe Bill Armstrong is a guy for this team. At the draft, when David Poile of the Nashville Predators, obviously the draft was held in Nashville, I thought, why wouldn't any GM currently want to be David Poile? Just be on a team for your whole career, make your stamp on this franchise, and be forever remembered for an NHL team like David Poile was for the Nashville Predators. I think Bill Armstrong will be that for the Arizona Coyotes. Other than that, Liam Kirk is no longer part of the Coyotes organization. He has signed a contract with a team in the Czech Republic, or Czechia, sorry. So he is no longer part of the Coyotes. The Coyotes don't own his rights anymore. So it's a sad end to a feel-good story. A British-English player trying to make his way into the NHL. Couldn't make it work with the Roadrunners last season. So he finds himself out of the Coyotes organization. So that's it for me. Thanks for watching. If you like what you see, spread the word. And as always, thank you for your support.